Something special over the next several weeks, now through November 20th. We have a special emphasis inside the service. You probably noticed it as you were walking through the doors today, called Fostering Hope, and it's also inside your worship guide as well. But over the next few weeks, you're going to have the very special privilege and opportunity to hear from people from our church. These are our people that we are blessed to call our family here at Faith. And they're just going to be sharing about their journey, their testimony, how God has moved and worked through this process called fostering and adopting. And so we have a special privilege today to kick that off with a family that I want to introduce to you. So I'm going to invite Bill and Jennie New to come on up here. And some of you know them and have met them. Some of you have not. And so I'm hoping that also just kind of another great byproduct of this is that you get to know some new people here at Faith that maybe you've not heard from before, maybe you've not met, and get to know a little bit more about them personally and their story as well. But as they come to share with us this morning, I want to pray with them. I want to pray over them because, listen, this is a very personal journey, and this is very moving. And I pray, our prayer, and what you'll hear me pray in a moment, is that this isn't just a blessing for them to be able to share how God has worked through this for them personally, but that it also has a dual effect, that it blesses you, and that you have the opportunity to just let God speak into your heart, and that you would seriously consider and pray what God may call you to do to make an impact in this specific way as well. So let's go to the Lord now in prayer as they prepare to share with us this morning. God, I thank you for Bill, and I thank you for Jennie. I thank you so much for just how you brought them here to faith. And Lord, that was just a tremendous journey to watch them connect here and become a part of our family. And we are so thankful and so blessed to call them a part of our church family. God, I pray for them specifically right now as they share this journey, this testimony with us. It's just a portion of their story. We know that. We understand that. But Lord, as I said, this is personal. This is a story of you at work. This is a story of you overcoming what possibly seemed like impossible odds. You doing great things and us just kind of sitting back and just being amazed at how good and gracious and kind you are. So would you use them today, Lord? Would you minister to them? Would you just calm their spirits, give them a sense of peace this morning as they share? But Lord, for us on the receiving end, I do pray that it moves us to action, that out of this testimony, you stir our hearts to be more sensitive to how we can make an impact specifically right here in our demographic in Franklin County and make an impact for those kids who are facing foster situations and adoption situations. Lord, just do what you need to do, and may we just simply be submissive and obedient to how you would move and work. So I lift them up to you now, Lord. Speak through them. I pray these things in your name. Amen. Would you welcome with me the News family?
Morning. My name is Bill, and this is my wife, Jennie.
When Lauren asked us if we could share our foster care and adoption story with the church, it dawned on Bill and I that we really never sat down to think or to process our story. We communicated bits and pieces here and there, and we learned last week that God can and does bless our messes. Our prayer is that God would use this for his glory and for his good. I knew from the moment I married Bill, I wanted to foster. Bill, not so much. However, with time, prayer, and patience, God changed Bill's heart about foster care, adoption, and kids.
So Jennie and I didn't get married until we were about 35 years old. We tried to have children for a couple of years, but weren't able to. On paper, we should have been able to have children. Probably initially, pride was the biggest obstacle that I had to foster care and adoption. I felt like maybe it failed. There was less than because of our struggle. I can't speak for Jennie, but it was a kind of a weird dynamic. People are good. People were good at the time, but it was like a weird dynamic at small groups with friends, etc. Just kind of being in a different sort of life at that point. So as Jennie had mentioned, looking back, and at the time, I could see God changing my heart and mind on foster care and adoption. During this time, we lived in Iowa and started taking classes to become adoptive parents. Our goal was to adopt, not to foster.
So classes were 30 hours long in length. We had some home visits to inspect our house and to interview us, to do background checks, to interview friends and family, right? Yeah. And then we were told adopting a child will be hard. It's very challenging to adopt a child that's in the foster care system unless you are a foster parent first. So then foster care it was. It wasn't on our radar, but that's what God led us to do. During the process of getting our license, we were asked how many kids we would like to foster. It's based on how big your house is, and we're like, well, let's just do a sibling group because we know that we want to try and keep families together. And Bill and I looked at each other, and we would be open to fostering 3 kids, such as in a sibling group.
So besides being asked about the number of children, I remember being asked about children of other ethnicities at the time. I said something to the fact that we'd prefer to have children that were like us. This was based on how I was raised and sort of thoughts at the time. Little did I know, God was working out his plan. Fast forward, we started getting phone calls about children. This sort of happens in foster care. You get licensed and approved, then you're in the system, so you're in a database somewhere, and people start calling you. So, you get licensed and approved before even the paperwork gets mailed to you. At least that was our experience. We first started out with twin 7-month-olds who were on respite with their foster parents. So respite's like a break or a rest for foster parents and foster children. Foster parents are given so many days per month that they can use, accumulate, or never use. We would encourage them to use them. The days that, getting some feedback from the audience, that's for sure, right, on respite. The day that the twins left with their foster family, so they were leaving that day, we received a phone call asking if we could take in a sibling group of 3, ages 1, 4, and 6, 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah, and going back to what Bill said about being licensed, when we got the phone call asking if we could take in a family, and I was like, oh, we're not licensed yet. They're like, you were just licensed 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. Yeah. Didn't know that. Okay. So when we got the call about having the sibling group of 3, Bill and I hurried. Like, we moved beds and making sure we had everything all together. We asked neighbors if we could borrow beds, high chairs, toys, and around 9 p.m., these 3 little tiny bodies and 2 social workers came to our house. As I stand here and talk to you, it's just like a blur of activity. It was just crazy. It was actually in September, right? And we were told the kids would be hungry. That day, they had only eaten a cup of rice all day, and this was 9 p.m. at night. Bill cut up some apples for the 2 older ones and added them and gave them some peanut butter and showed them how to dip the apples into peanut butter. The littlest one sat on my lap, sucking on her bottle filled with Tang, as Bill and I signed paperwork stating how now we were responsible for these 3 little bodies, making sure that they were fed and loved and safe and cared for. And that's what we knew that we were called to do. We just knew at that time. So as we tucked the kids into bed, the 4-year-old asked where his TV was. He said, well, in my hotel room. I always have a TV on in my room. And at the time, we didn't even think about it until it hit us with a ton of bricks. Yep. It's challenging. So as the sun came up and a new day started, Bill and I did not know what to expect. We had no kids, and now we have these 3. And between head lice, lack of clothes, and toys, we were hit with the reality that we went from 0 to 3 in a heartbeat. However, God heard our cries. He spoke to our neighbors. We had toys dropped off at our front door. We had clothes dropped off at our front door. We utilized a local foster closet called Families Helping Families out of Cedar Rapids. And Bill went off to go get car seats and booster seats. We had a dear friend come and help me get the lice off of the 3 kids. The first 2 weeks were a complete and utter blur. The youngest one at 1 was terrified, absolutely terrified of Bill. She would look at him and just scream and run. And the 4-year-old asked Bill and I a million times, Jennie, can I watch TJ Maxx? I'm like, TJ Maxx? I'm like, what do you want to watch a commercial about TJ Maxx? Later to come out, it was PJ Masks. The 6-year-old was parentified. She was really busy taking care of her younger sister, and now she could just be a 6-year-old. We went through so much food those first 2 weeks, first month. Until they were with us, they had no food security. They did not know when they were going to eat next. And now they could eat all the apples and peanut butter that they wanted. As time went on, these 3 munchkins persevered through many trials of visits with family, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, school, and structure. And Bill and I persevered with appointments for the kids, WIC coupons, and balancing a healthy relationship with kids, their moms, social workers, and ourselves. At night, when the kids would sleep, Bill and I would just check in with each other. Either we'd sit outside on our deck or in the garage or on our couch and like, how are you doing? How are we doing? What are we doing?
I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. It's like the countdown at night to get kids into bed, and then like finally you can breathe. So that's kind of where we were at certain points. Is it was like just making it through the day. So it was just definitely day by day, and sometimes minute by minute, hour by hour sort of thing. So before foster care, I'd try to figure out who was who in the families and understand what was going on. I'd look at a family and try and dissect it and understand it. And now I just sort of go with the flow. If children are safe and loved, that's what matters. So foster care exposed me to a whole new world of people that didn't look, act, or live like I did. I grew up in middle class, suburbia, probably lower middle class, if I'm being honest. They say birds of a feather flock together. In my experience, that's true. While we were foster parents, we were exposed to people and environments that were 180 of what we knew. So, that's you.
A lot of being a foster parent is being an advocate for the children in your care. In the case of our 3 little ones, initially in our care, we probably had about 30 people on their case. So that includes the 2 of us and then social workers and everyone else. We worked with everyone. We wanted reunification to happen. That was our ultimate goal. And 80% of foster kids do go back to their families. To help with reunification, we drove 45 minutes each way to make sure that the kids went to the school and to the daycare by their mom's house. We worked with mom to help her become more awesome, and we celebrated the highs and cried with the kids during the lows.
One of the lowest times was when we decided that for the safety of the other kids, so it's not all rainbows and unicorns, okay? So one of the lowest times we had when we decided that the safety of the kids and for our marriage, we needed to have the oldest child removed from our home. We gave plenty of notice, and she went to live with a relative. This was one of the hardest decisions we ever had to make. It's not an easy decision, and we agonized over the loss. We personally felt like failures at the time. She had needs that we couldn't meet and knew it was best for everyone involved. It can be easy to judge, and talking with other foster parents that have had to do the same thing, there's a lot of guilt. All we can say is, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. The good news is after finding the right home, she was ultimately adopted and is doing well. So we continue to keep her and the kids connected as circumstances allowed.
As time went on, our love and bond with the kids grew stronger. The 1-year-old was now obsessed with Bill and started to call him Daddy Bill. The 4-year-old struggled with the love of his mom and the love of Mama Jennie, and he loved going to children's church and eating Culver's. 1 year into foster care, turned into 2. Reunification was still the goal, but now it was getting really hard. During these tough times, we leaned on God and each other. We asked, God, if these kids are meant to be with us, please make it abundantly clear, not only to us, but to everyone else in the case. God made that clear. Now, the 3-year-old and the 6-year-old they were now with us forever. In 2018, after 917 days in foster care, Anna and Amari were adopted. 2 weeks after my cancer treatment and 1 week after Mother's Day.
All right. So where are we at now? We're blessed to have 2 beautiful children. Amari's 11, Anna's 8. We're still learning every day as we raise our children. We want our children to know and love Jesus. We have an amazing relationship with their bio mom and see her twice a year in Iowa. The kids also have a great relationship with their sister. They speak to Sissy on a weekly basis, sometimes even more. We still communicate with those who are advocates for the kids, the guardian ad litem, the social worker, and our adoption worker. Our family and friends were incredibly supportive of us during our journey. Before and during the process of becoming foster parents, we talked with our neighbors and friends and let them know we were going to be foster parents. We have family members who are foster parents right now and will be adopting at the end of the year. And we're so glad to have people that get it. There's a connection, like people that are foster and adoptive parents, you kind of get each other, so.
So things that we would do differently would be to take pictures where you didn't have to put a stamp on their face, like cover their face. And you can't show pictures on social media, you have to cover up their face. That's one of the things we regret, because you can't take that off, and who knows, you might be able to adopt them one day. For foster care and adoptive moms, there's a lot of programs out there called Joy in the Journey. It's a retreat in Kansas City and now in California you can go to.
Which you signed up for last night, right?
Which I signed up for last night.
Yep.
I did, yep. And there's also Empowered to Connect. This is not even just for foster care and adoptive moms. It's actually for parents in general. It's through the Care and Purpose Institute out of TCU. It just gives you resources to work with kids that come from hard places. Also, I would encourage therapy, play therapy.
Yeah, on the Empowered to Connect, I guess something I'd add to that is for like even educators, people that are around kids, maybe kids from hard places. After we had made the tough decision with their sister, with the kid's sister, I read that book, and it's sort of just like, I hate to use the expression aha moments, but a lot of, oh man, that's why this happened, or that's why, this sort of thing. So something to sort of remember is sometimes foster kids get a bad rap, foster parents too. So don't let a few bad apples spoil the bushel in regards to foster parents. For foster kids, remember these are kids from hard places that have had to survive things they shouldn't have to survive and be exposed to. Yeah, I got it. So we've taken the first steps in becoming respite providers or foster parents in Missouri. We're still working through what that looks like for us. Something that's important to remember the entire time is to reiterate and have age-appropriate conversations about the who, how, and why of what happened regarding past circumstances. So that's we've been very consistent over time, but sometimes we got to, sort of update the conversation to be a little more age-appropriate. Oh, yeah. So, again, we're all made in the image of God and have value and worth. Unfortunately, fallen people in a fallen world make a mess of things. That includes me and you. Despite all of that, or more accurately, in God's sovereign providence, he works things together for his glory and our good. You already know this. Adoption's biblical. Something that I sort of learned over time, but adoption's biblical. Through Jesus, we're adopted into God's family. And in Romans 8:14 through 17, it says that for all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with him in order that we may also be glorified with him. So if you haven't been adopted into God's family yet, today could be that day. By God's grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. This has been a journey and will continue to be. Thanks for letting us share it with you guys. And we'd be glad to talk with you after the service, answer any questions you have, or just talk. Thank you.
I hope you've been blessed and encouraged just to hear this story. We thank you guys so much for sharing. That's personal, it's real, and man, I'm going to continue to pray that God would use it. I want to pray over them, church, and just once again thank them for standing up here in front of all of you. I love doing it every week, but it takes courage, all right? So you guys are tremendous. You're loving, you're supportive, and thankful for them being willing to come up here. So I want to pray for them, and then I'll give us some instructions here in just a minute. Let me pray for you guys yet again. God, thank you so much for the story we just heard. It's gripped my heart. And God, I just thank you that, as Bill pointed out, all of us were lost children at one point, wandering away from you, not following you, not in your family, and yet you found us. You saved us. You called us into your family. And God, that's something that can never be erased. And I pray that for these children that are, it's numerous, unbelievable how many kids find themselves in this kind of situation, looking for a forever home. And God, I pray that you would just stir the church, not just here locally at Faith Baptist, but Lord, globally. Would you get a hold of our hearts and help us to see the need, that this is a very real problem, and that there's a very real solution. And that solution is you. It's the gospel. And Father, for us who know you, we carry that gospel message with us wherever we go. We're ambassadors for Christ, it says in your word. And so, Father, would you help us to do that? To be ambassadors even in the hard places, like fostering, like adopting. So God, whatever you want to do and however you want to be glorified through what was shared today, Father, I pray your will be done. That we would just be willing, submissive servants, ready to go where you would lead us, ready to do what you call us to do, and we would not think twice about it. There's fear there, there's anxiety there, there's worry, there's concern, but Father, all of that is trumped when we just have faith, as we've looked at over the last several weeks. So God, encourage us, strengthen us. Thank you for Bill, thank you for Jennie, thank you for their story. May all this be for your glory. I pray these things in your name. Amen. Amen. Let's thank them one more time.